Hey guys, Hiran here and welcome to the Perfect Pharaoh tutorial. Now the Perfect Pharaoh is one of our favorite card flourishes, not just because it looks really cool and surreal and weird, but also because it's one of the most versatile utilities. Utility? What's that, you might ask? Well, basically you can use the Perfect Pharaoh to do other card flourishes. An example is the giant fan, where you first need to weave the cards together before you fan them as a huge spread. The other is the cascade, which you're going to be learning along in this tutorial package, where you weave the cards together first before you pour them into the other hand. The list goes on. Essentially, the Perfect Pharaoh looks cool, it's super versatile, and the cool thing is this. Contrary to what most people think, it's easier than it looks. You see, it's been said that about 99% of card handlers in the world cannot do the Perfect Pharaoh. Now, I've not met 99% of the card handlers in the world, but from the many people we've met who try to do it, they really have an issue with it. And the thing is this, it's not like the Perfect Pharaoh is so difficult that it's out of their skill level. No, those guys are skilled. In other words, the Perfect Pharaoh isn't too difficult for them. It's simply a very misunderstood move. Once you understand the Perfect Pharaoh, it just clicks. It becomes almost automatic, it becomes easy. And in this video, I'm going to teach you how to do the Perfect Pharaoh, so it's an easy move. Now before I tell you how it works, I'm going to tell you how it doesn't work. What's the huge misconception with the move? What's everybody getting wrong? Well, most people think that it's about brute force. The stronger I am, the better I can weave the cards. As long as I split the packets, I can just go smash, and I use all the strength in the world to rub and clash and go Close enough. Like I said before, the weave itself is supposed to be almost automatic. There's no strength required. It's as light as a feathery touch, just like this. And that's all you need to bring the cards together. Now what's the big secret? How can you do it like that? And they just melt. Why is there no force which kind of damages the edge of the cards and this becomes this weird mishmash clash of cards coming together? Well, the secret is this. It's about everything that happens before you even try to weave the cards together. Now what do I mean by that? How can it be about everything that happens before the weave? Well, it's because of the biggest underlying concept in the Perfect Pharaoh. It's a release of built-up tension. The idea is to build up tension before you even try to weave the cards. And then when you weave the cards together, you're going to release that tension so the cards just ripple into each other. It's not as complicated as it sounds. Let me show you. So tension is created from the very beginning. The cards are split into two tight packets, like two clean slabs of wood. There's tension in each one. It's not two mushy packets just trying to smash into each other. No, slabs of wood. Okay, that's a thought to keep in mind. Now once you have these two clean slabs of wood, you're going to bring them and connect them like that and push them together to create this upward bend. Now, why the bend? Well, everything. Think about it. When you bend something, it wants to unbend. Likewise, when you bend the packet, it wants to unbend. Now, two things can happen. First of all, because the two packets are pushing against each other, for them to unbend, you can either pull them apart so they stop blocking each other, or they can go into each other, right? That releases the tension. Of course, currently there are two clean slabs of wood. How can they possibly go into each other? With force? No. It's about releasing that tension. Now the bend also creates something called a bevel in the cards. In other words, watch. When the cards are held together like a clean packet, it's just like a piece of wood. The moment they start to bend, you create this series of small steps, and that's called a bevel in the cards. They change from a slab of wood into a series of stairs. Now of course you're still holding everything so tightly together, but the idea is to do something that we call cutting a cake. Now one packet acts as a cake. It's stable, it doesn't move. The other hand acts as a knife. It slices. When you bring these two together, you create that bevel. All you need to do is slice that knife into the cake, and then you'll see that the cards just start to split at one end, and then they start to interlock, and a ripple just happens, causing the cards to weave right into each other. That's what I mean by it's automatic, because all it is a release of tension. Everything happens before the weave to create that tension, and when they're finally brought together, the cake is cut. The cards have a release of tension, and everything literally falls into place. But of course, the bigger question in everybody's mind is this. How do you get it to weave one for one? I get it, they can weave, there's a release of tension, they slide into each other, but how does it go perfectly interlocked like that? It's still all about the tension. You see, the weave happens like a chain reaction, right? It's a ripple of released tension just going like interlocking gears. Think about it this way, right? If you have two gears interlocking into each other, each tooth of the gear interlocks to the tooth closest to it, right? I mean, this guy won't go like, oh, I'm gonna go for this guy over there. Now, if you have two packets of cards and one is all loose and this one's all weird as well, and then you weave them together, then obviously they're not gonna be one for one. But if you keep that concept of keeping tension in the packets from the very beginning, if you have that slab of wood just weaving into another slab of wood, the cards have no choice but to weave perfectly into each other because they're just that tightly packed and they go boom, perfectly into one another. So that's the big thing. It's all about that tension from the beginning, before the weave, only released at the end. And that's it, that's how it works. But of course, that's just how it works. You need to try to actually be able to do it. So in the next video, you're gonna go hands-on with me. I'm gonna show you how to do the perfect ferrule, step by step, from the grips to the split, to the tension, to the weave, to the kick cutting, everything. It's gonna be fun. I'll see you in the next video. Welcome back, and in this video I'm going to teach you how to do the perfect ferrule step by step. I think the most important thing to keep in mind before we begin is this. Remember what I said about the perfect ferrule? It's not about the strength or the muscles or just shoving the packets together, but it's about the tension that is kept from the beginning all the way up to the weave, and you want to make sure that only then is it released. Like a chain reaction, allowing the cards to perfectly weave one for one. Now, to create and maintain that tension from the beginning all the way to the weave, you need two things. First, you need to have the right grips. That means holding the cards in a way that makes them tight, stable, clean. That way you can weave the cards perfectly, right? You don't hold the cards right to begin with, it's just gonna be messy clumps, it's not gonna work. Secondly, you need to streamline the flourish. You know, when a lot of people do the perfect ferrule, it's just filled with starts and stops and re-grips and all these weird transitions that are unnecessary. That often breaks tension because you gotta let go and adjust and let go and adjust and knock the cards. And by the time you reach the weave, the cards are messy and you kind of have to start squaring and cleaning up all over again. It's not gonna work. So keep those two things in mind, the grip and streamlining the flourish. Now, with those two steps in mind, I'm going to first show you what most people do so that you know what to avoid, you can be aware of it, and once you know that, once you know what to get out of the way, we can nail down the absolute essentials and you'll see how easy it's going to be. Now, in most people's minds, the perfect ferrule is very, very straightforward. It's just, oh, take two packets and shove them together. You know, it's like two steps, hold it and weave it. But unfortunately, you know, it's not as simple as that. You need to start the right grips, you need to split the packets, you need to bring them together. So what, you know, in their mind takes about 2 steps, ends up being about 8 steps. Now it kind of goes like this. Step 1, begin in weird flower position. Sometimes it's more regular, but the fact is it's always a strange, loose, awkward grip. Step 2, split the packets. Okay, great. Step 3, slide it out and stop because they have to re-grip. Their grip was weird to begin with and now they have to re-grip. So step 4, re-grip. So they re-grip. Step 5, now you split the packets. Step 6, oh, I can't weave them yet because they're not neat. So tap to square, and now step 7. The cards are pretty neat now. It's time to shove them together. Weave! Weave, I say! Weave! And they try and try again until they kind of get this close enough thing. They only missed by 1 or 2 or 5 or 10, but it's okay, right? Then step 8, close. Now those 8 painful steps can actually be reduced to 5 smooth, simple steps. Watch. Step 1, grip nicely. Step 2, split cleanly. Step 3, bevel. Step 4, weave. Step 5, close. That's it. Now let's start with step 1. Step 1 involves gripping the cards in the right way, and that involves having the right tension and comfort, right? You're going to build up the tension from the very beginning, and you want to be comfortable so that you're always ready for the next step. You don't have to keep shifting around, and you always have that precision in controlling the cards. Now at the very beginning, a little secret called prepping the deck helps. That means before I even grip the cards, I prepare the deck like that. What I do is I hold the deck high up like that at the long ends, these are the short ends, and I just bend it upwards, giving it a slight upward bow, like a small U shape. What this does is that when I go and bevel the cards later by pressing them against each other, that slight bend allows the cards to bend outwards with less resistance, and that really helps at the beginning. You won't have to do that every single time, but right now as you're learning it, it really helps. Now once you have this slight bow in the deck, let's talk about tension and comfort. Now when it comes to tension, you can't really see it, but between every single card, right, there's this slight air gap. There's a layer of air between each card, allowing them to just smoothly slide around. And the idea of creating tension is to get rid of all that air. Now to create tension, you're going to hold the deck in a mechanic's grip. Now that's like a straddle grip, except your pinky's not on the short side, it's on the long side of the deck. Now you might think that this is really simple, just hold the deck like that, but it's not. There are a lot of essential key points to it, and on our website, we have a super duper comprehensive tutorial on the straddle grip. So apply the principles there, but pinky on the long side of the deck. Now the difference here is this. Don't leave your index finger in the front, you're going to bring it to the bottom. Now your right hand is going to hold the deck in end grip, and all that is this. Thumb goes to the short side, 3 fingers to the front, and your index fingers on the top. So, position check. You have your index finger here on the top and the other ones at the bottom. Now just lift it and bring the deck up so that you're holding it now in a high mechanics grip like that, and an end grip. Now to create tension, all you're doing is just pushing your hands together and your index fingers are helping. So it goes like this, boom. And that's it. Squish the air out, index fingers help, and tension is created. Now creating that tension, it happens in a single smooth motion. So it's just like that. It doesn't even look like a step, but look, it's done. You're not going like this. It's not so intense, just a gentle tension that's created in the deck. But like I mentioned, having the right grip involves the tension and the comfort, and that comfort prepares you for the next step. So how do I prepare myself for the next step? Well, as I raise the deck like that and apply pressure to squeeze the air out, I'm also sliding the fingers on the long side all the way to the top of the packet. So look, like this hand comes over, lifts, slide, and pressure is applied. Single smooth motion. Why? Because in the next step, these fingers are going to come over here at this gap to split the packets, and I'm creating space for them in advance. So later, there's no shifting or weird movements. So now, you're ready for step 2, splitting the packets. Now what's going to happen here is that you want to mirror your hands. Of course, right now your left hand is in a mechanic's grip, your right hand is in an end grip. So to mirror, remember just now you shifted these fingers upwards, you're going to be shifting your right hand from an end grip to a high straddle grip. Of course, this has to happen while the tension is maintained in the entire deck. Now quick recap, what's keeping the tension in the deck? Well, it's your hands pressing against each other like that, and your index finger at the top, index finger at the bottom. And so what's going to happen here is this. When you re-grip, you're kind of just letting go of your right hand. So all the tension is lost. But if you keep your index finger there, look, I can shift and rotate my grip. I can still keep the tension in the deck. So look, like this, keep your index fingers there, let go thumb, let go these fingers, keep the index finger there, rotate your hand clockwise, so your pinky goes to the short side, like a straddle grip. The other fingers go on the long side at the space you created just now. And finally, your thumb goes to the long side down here, gripping the top half of the deck near the middle. Now pause. I'm going to zoom into why it's so essential to have your thumb right at this spot. This is the most important detail about the re-grip. You see, keeping your thumb near the middle allows your index finger to extend past the top of the deck like that. And this allows you to align the packets for the weave later on. Now what most people do is that they feel that, oh, it's probably a bit easier to just break and split the deck near the corner. And while that is kind of true, what you often end up doing is this. They split the packets, they shift it out, then they realize they need to re-grip before they can weave later on. By gripping the packet near the middle from the very beginning, you eliminate an entire step. And that keeps the stability there and makes everything much smoother. Now let's take a look at your left and your right thumb, okay? Once you've shifted your grip. Now look, your left thumb is gripping the entire deck and it's pointing upwards. It's perpendicular to the deck. Whereas your right thumb is only gripping the top half and is pointed towards the other thumb. Why? Because this prepares you for the cake cutting action later. This perpendicular position keeps the packet more stable, and this, being the knife later on, is more directional, and this really helps you to control the packets as you weave them later on. Super important. So what just happened is this. We just shifted grip from a high mechanics grip and an end grip to a mirror position where this is in a high straddle grip. Now, to complete this entire grip shift, what you're going to do is bring your index finger to the front of the deck. So look, left index finger goes to the front and wraps over the short side, and your right index finger is just going to extend and lay flat and just extend over the front of the deck. Now if you look at it, it's actually very similar to the way your thumbs are positioned, with your left index finger just pointing upwards towards the sky and your right index finger being very, very directional. Now of course, because your index fingers are not on top of the deck anymore, you're going to be shifting that tension back to the entire hands, just pressing down against the thing. Now this entire grip shift happens in a single smooth motion. So I'm going to show you a slow-mo version, then I'm going to show you how I actually do it in real time. So let's go into slow-mo. Left hand in high mechanics grip, right hand in end grip, and it goes like that. Let go, pinky, fingers, thumb, index finger. So that's me trying to do slow-mo, and it actually happens like this in real time. From here, shift, done. So that's it, a single motion. Of course, when you practice this thing, you want to do it like I did it in slow-mo. So you really want to be very deliberate, okay? And by deliberate, I mean you want to exaggerate it. You want to be as accurate as possible, but on an exaggerated way. So you're going to do like, okay, high mechanics, end grip, let go, shift, pinky, fingers, thumb at the top half pointing towards the other thumb, pointing upwards, left index, right index, like that. And then over time, you can go single motion. Okay, if you just practice fast at the beginning, you're just going to be really inaccurate. So keep it slow and deliberate, and over time you'll be a ninja. So let's move on. Now from this position, you're going to be splitting the deck into two packets, and here's how to make it really clean. You're going to begin with a V, then you're going to make it into two slabs of wood. So it works like that. From this position, index finger applies pressure on top of the entire deck, and now you're going to use the tip of your thumb to split, okay, the right thumb. Now using the tip of your thumb allows you to really feel, estimate, hey, where's the half? Found it, and then you can lift off. You know, it's very, very different. I mean, if you use the whole flat of your thumb, it just will be all over the place. So if you use the tip, you can pinpoint the half and just go boom, like that. So here, index finger applies pressure, bend your thumb slightly so the tip comes in contact with the deck, and then estimate the half, and with your fingers acting as a hinge, you just break into a V. From this position, you just do this, and ta-da, you split the deck into two equal slabs of wood. And now you're ready for step 3, connecting the packets and creating the tension between them right before the weave. Now remember the whole cake and knife example? Your left hand is the cake, it stays stable, your right hand is the knife, it does the slicing. Well, as you split the packets, you're going to make the cake super stable. So as you do this, you're going to slide your pinky to the bottom like that, creating a new point of stability. So look, without your pinky, woo! With your pinky, wow, so stable. So like this, slide, and now you're going to connect the two packets together. Now this step is as simple as bringing the packets together and pressing them against each other. But what most people do is this, they split, they bring it in, right before they touch, they go like, oh, let me knock it. This makes it neater. Oh yes, yes. No, don't do it. Waste of time, and it just messes things up. In the case where you do need to square the packets together, you actually do it this way instead. You're going to bring the packets together and align them. Now your index finger is going to help with the alignment at the top, and what you're going to do is apply a slight downward pressure. So look, that keeps the tension between the two packets, and all you need to do to subtly square them is just push. And I think of it this way, I think of my right thumb just pushing against my left index finger, and I just push, and look, the packets just square up. Now this squaring motion isn't just to clean up the packets, it's about connecting them to form a single long straight piece of wood. It's not some wobbly, weird ass connection, it's really a strong solid connection that goes boom like that, clean, solid and strong. Now once you have this solid connection with your index finger applying that pressure downwards, you're going to prepare yourself for the bevel. Now the bevel is where all that tension is built up right before the weave, right before everything just interlocks into the weave, right? So you want to focus all the tension to the corners of the packets. So to do that, you're going to create something called the crack. So from this square position, to crack it, you're going to keep your index finger there, and you're just going to open up the back, cracking it open to a slight V shape. Now this channels all the tension and the pressure to just these two corners here. Now when you're in this position, you're going to bend the wood slightly. So with your knife packet, you're just going to bend down slightly, creating a bit of an upside down V, and then you're going to push up. See, what happens is that your thumb directs pressure upwards and your index finger is the one that keeps everything from coming apart. So it's a really, really tight and tense situation. Now you're ready for step 4, the weave. So you have your packets connected together like that, and you're going to get ready to slice the cake. So knife packet, cake packet. Now one thing that most people tend to do is that when they start to do the slice, their index finger just comes up like this, and it breaks everything they've been building up. Don't do that, okay? Keep your index finger flat over both packets and that tension there. Now you're going to learn how to slice. Now the cake cutting action is super simple. It's just a straight line movement down the edge of the packet. But what's important is how you apply it. What's your mindset when you're slicing the cake? Because you're not just mashing the cuts together. So what I do is that I think about my right thumb as the direction of the force. I'm applying the direction with my right thumb. And I'm also pointing it towards my left index finger. So I'm not just blindly going anywhere. I'm focusing on that force going towards that, and this left index finger is resisting it. Now what's keeping my knife packet secure is my right pinky that's in this straddle grip position down here. So look, super secure knife, but just pushing like that, thumb directing the force towards my left index finger. Now with that in mind, your focus on where the cut should weave first is at the bottom of the two packets, right where they touch, where the tension is strongest. So as that cake goes down, what that does is that the sliding eases the friction that's built up there. When it eases the friction, that wood just splits at the very ends from the bottom, and like a crack, it goes all the way up as the cuts just weave into each other. And that's it. Now the easiest way to close the ferrule is really just by pressing the cuts back into each other. Now the thing is that most people kind of do it like that. They go here and they go like and it's like this weird cookie monster eating a plate thing. And here's how to keep it neat. Once the packets are weaved, just lower everything to your left hand, secure it with your pinky like this. See, I can hold my hand upside down, it won't drop. My right hand, the thumb goes behind, push in like this, the whole hand goes over, and I just push it together with this hand, lightly, gently, and everything comes to a nice clean close. And that's the easiest and cleanest way to close the ferrule. Now there's a cooler way to close the ferrule, and it's called the bridge, and it looks like this. Pretty impressive, and here's how you do that. Once I get into the weave, I'm going to lower into my hand as in the previous close, but this time I'm going to grip it a bit higher. Instead of lowering it all the way down, I grip it at the bone down here, and this gives me space to arc the packets. So, right thumb goes behind, the other fingers go in front, and my left index finger also helps to bend everything. Now you see this bone right here at the bottom of my index finger? I'm going to use that to help, so watch. Thumb pushes, look, it contacts that bone of my index finger as everything pulls. I bring the bottom cards together like this, and when I'm ready, I just release, and the cards bridge to a close. And that's it. Super duper simple. And that's the basic mechanics of the perfect ferrule. If you got it on your first try, congrats, that's really, really awesome. And if you didn't, that's perfectly fine because it's a really knacky and tricky move. I think once you get everything in mind, once it just clicks, you're just gonna get it. So don't worry, keep all the points I've mentioned in mind, watch the tutorial again if you have to, and it will really help you out. You get it in no time. Now to recap, it's all about everything that happens before the weave, right? Most importantly, it's the tension that is created and is maintained all the way up, and that's made possible by the grips. You want to keep every step in mind, keeping everything clean, streamlining the flourish, and once you put that all together, it's going to be automatic. Of course, some of you have two more big questions which I usually get, which is this. The first one is, how do I split the deck into perfect halves? Boom, consistently every single time. That's a method for that. And the next question is, I've tried everything you said. I've watched this tutorial 10 times, but still the cards refuse to weave. Is there something I don't know? Is there something I'm doing wrong? Well, the answer is in the next video. So check it out, it will help you there. And I also include some tips on style and finesse with the ferrule as well. So I'm Huron from The Vert. I'll see you in the next video. Welcome back, and now that you know the basic mechanics of the perfect ferrule, it's time to go deeper and check out the advanced stuff. I'm going to be sharing with you the two biggest answers to the two biggest questions about the perfect ferrule. Then I'll share with you some style and finesse tips that will really take it to the next level. So let's go. Big question number one is this: how do you consistently split the deck into 2 exact halves of 26 cards every single time? Well, first of all, I need to get this straight. You don't really have to do a perfect pharaoh every single time, because it's not a magic trick. You're not depending on the math of the pharaoh to execute a flourish. You still can do a flourish, but why we want to do a perfect pharaoh to begin with is because of what card flourishing is all about. It's very much about the aesthetics of what you do, which is how nice, how polished, how refined it looks. And, for example, you could do an imperfect pharaoh and execute the cascade, but there'll be little things about it that won't look as nice. The stream wouldn't be as fluid, the cards wouldn't flow as smoothly, it might not even last as long. And some people would say, oh, a layman can't tell the difference between a cascade that is 70% perfect and 100% perfect. And while that's true, they can't visually point out and say, oh yeah, you see, 1 card fell, then 2, then 1, then 2. They can feel the difference. So they can look at 2 people doing the same thing, and they'll still be drawn to 1. 2 people can do the same thing and they'll say, wow, there's something about the way he does it that just looks so much better. I can't tell what it is, but it looks so much better. And so the question is, how can you do that consistently? And the answer is, you feel it. And you're probably thinking to yourself, that's crazy, I'm not some kind of card Zen master ninja, I can't just feel it with my magical fingertips. Well, of course not, neither am I. That's why there's a technique for it. And it uses something called the key card principle. So to start, you count off 26 cards. So you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26. Half. When you're done, memorize the bottom card here of the one you just broke off. Okay, so here it says 3 of spades. When you've done that, dump all the cards back on top, and you're ready to go. So now you have the key card in mind, but how does this come into play with the whole feeling thing? Well, think about it. Your thumb is the one that does the splitting, that pulls the packet apart and goes for the weave later on. So you want to teach it, you want to have it kind of be programmed into your thumb what contacting half the deck feels like, what lifting and splitting half the deck feels like, what holding half the deck feels like. Of course, you need to know when you actually strike half and you got it perfect. How do you do that? Well, that's where the key card comes into play. When you split it perfectly and you lift and you take a look at the card that you cut to, if you got the key card, then you got it right. So here's how you practice it. Step 1, you're going to try splitting the deck at random spots, and then you're going to remember what that feels like. So you're going to use your thumb, okay, with the grips and techniques I taught you to get into the split. You do it this way, like that. This is what splitting maybe a fifth of the deck feels like. Okay, it feels this way, it's kind of sharp at the edges, it's kind of light. That's what it feels like too with my fingertips, my thumb, that's what it's like. Then you go, okay, what does 2/3 of the deck feel like? So you lift it, oh, it's a blunter feeling. Okay, it kind of feels like that, it's a bit thicker. Okay, that's what sensations are running through my thumb. And once you have an idea of more cards, less cards, then you can go for step 2, which is playing around with the middle. So here you can strike the middle, and then when you lift, if you get it right, you'll see your key card. And when you see that key card, you memorize it, and you go, aha! So that's what it feels like, near the middle. This is the exact sensation. If you kind of miss by 1 or 2, kind of ignore it, ignore that feeling, and aim for the key card. When you get the key card, you go, that's the exact half, that's it. And take in, just pause for a moment and take in those sensations in your fingertips. So here's a really helpful tip when it comes to practicing striking down the middle, and that's to always deliberately reset when you do get the key card. So say you get the key card, you strike down the middle, and you go, okay, I got it. Let me do that again. When you do that again, don't just put it down and then lift off again, put it down and lift off again, because of something called the natural break. Now when you split 2 packets, what happens is that there's this layer of air that is between the packets when you drop it back down. So if you just split back in the same spot, they're already kind of split by that layer of air. All you're doing is just lifting it back up. So it's kind of pointless, it only feels like you're getting better, but you're not. So you want to deliberately reset the movement. So what I do is that I get it, I remember that feeling, I close it, and then I start again, as if I'm doing the pharaoh from the very beginning. I squish out the air so the natural break is gone, and that helps me to practice the flow of the pharaoh. I go like this, boom, get back into it, lift, memorize, that's it. Okay, let's try that again, squish, let's get back into that position, key card, like that. That way you eliminate the natural break, and you're actually getting better at feeling when you get it exactly into 2 halves. I know it sounds a bit crazy, but it will be something that is absolutely automatic. Your brain, your fingers are just going to take it in and absorb it, and eventually it's going to be like that. You can just pick it up, lift it, boom. Your fingers will just know when you strike half and you split half. So it's going to be consistent without you even needing to try. Just practice it this way, put some repetition to it so your brain gets the awareness of it, and it's going to be automatic. Now if you can already weave the cards one for one, but you're just kind of working on splitting the deck perfectly, here's what you can do instead of going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 all the way to 26, which is a real drag. So what I do is something called the Pharaoh check. Here's how it works. You do your best to split the deck into 2 exact halves. So let's assume that these fingers are 2 equal packets, or in this case 3 fingers and 3 fingers, okay? Now when they weave, look, they're going to be staggered and then go 1 for 1. Now if they're equal packets, you notice that the top card will be from one packet and the bottom card will be from the other packet, right? 3, 3, like this. Now let's assume they're not equal. So instead of 3, 3, this one has 1 card more and this has 1 card less. And when they weave, you'll notice that the top and the bottom card will be from the packet with more cards. So very simple. In that case, you just use your thumb and you slide the card over like this, boom. And that gives you equal halves. And then you memorize the key card and then you're set to practice. So that's much faster than just counting off the cards. Just split, check, slide, okay, let's get on with practice. Now we can move on to big question number 2, and that is, I've tried everything you said, I've watched the tutorial, I remember it all, but yet when I try to apply what you taught me, I still can't get the cards to Pharaoh. So what's wrong? Is it me? So the thing is this, we tend to think we absorb every single bit of information upon first viewing, but the truth is that we just don't remember what we forgot because we forgot it. So I encourage you to watch the tutorial again because it's packed with so much information. I can't imagine that anybody could just watch it once and remember everything. So watch it a few times because on multiple viewings, new details will pop up that you'll be like, maybe did he change the tutorial? I didn't see that the first time round. And this will save you weeks and weeks of frustration. I had to learn this the hard way, I used to watch tutorials once and then I'll go ahead and practice this thing and then I'll be stuck. And then when I get stuck, I'll be like, oh man, the tutorial didn't teach me how to do this bit. So I'll spend weeks trying to figure out how can I possibly overcome this hurdle. Then I'll come out with a brilliant technique after much refinement and I'll be like, this works. Only to realize that it was in the original tutorial all along, but I missed it the first time round. But let's say you did that, you diligently watched the tutorial multiple times but you still can't get it. Well, more often than not, it comes down to the problem of awareness. And that's simply the difference between what you think you're doing versus what you're actually doing. Let me elaborate. So let's say it comes to the issue of tension, the thing I keep repeating about, keep the tension there until the weave. Well, it's a big issue because when it comes to awareness, a lot of people think that they're keeping the packets all tensed and tight, when actually they're just kind of flexing their hands. And when it comes to the transitions or the regripping, what they often end up doing is that they're slowly letting go of the tension unconsciously, and when they reach the weave, even though their hands are tense, the packets are loose. So how do you develop that sense of awareness? Well, for myself, I like to kind of compare what I'm doing as I'm learning something versus where I'm learning it from. So that way I have a standard to kind of work towards. So for example, you're learning the perfect Pharaoh, right? When you see what clean and tense packets are supposed to look like in this video, then you can hit pause and then you can see, okay, that's what clean, nice packets are supposed to look like. The cards aren't sticking out, the edges aren't jaggedy. Then I'll compare it with my own hands. So I'll be like, okay, how are my packets? Okay, that doesn't make sense, even though my hands feel kind of tight. Oh, that doesn't make sense in the packets. Let me tweak it, let me adjust it until it makes sense. And then from there, I have a greater awareness of what my hands feel like versus what's being produced by my hands. But let's say you have your sense of awareness developed, you've watched the tutorial multiple times, what else could be the issue? Well, oftentimes it boils down to the deck of cards itself. You see, when it comes to the perfect Pharaoh, we only use paper cards. We don't use plastic decks, okay? Why? Because paper cards are cut in a way where the edges are really nice and clean and smooth and they weave together like, ice cream and butter. But when it comes to plastic cards, the edges are cut in a way where it's just rough and sharp and it's uneven. So when you're trying to weave it together, they just go generally it just doesn't work. If you've tried an amazing, miraculous plastic deck that does, good for you. But as a guideline, we avoid plastic cards and we only use paper cards. Plastic coated paper cards, those are fine. But as a big general rule, paper cards only. Now, another weird thing about paper cards that I want to share with you is that the direction that they're cut can affect the way that they Pharaoh. You see, a paper deck is made up of a huge sheet that's just printed, and then from that sliced into many, many cards. Now you can't physically see this, but the cutting blade tapers in a certain way, so it goes shh, and that causes every single card, the edge, to taper in a similar fashion. So say you're facing issues weaving a deck from the bottom to the top. All you really need to do is turn the deck around, try again, and you realize, hey, in this direction, it weaves perfectly well and smoothly. So sometimes if one way doesn't work, the other way just might. But I know what you're thinking. Oh, I just opened this deck and I'm trying to do the perfect pharaoh with it and I have issues, you know, I'm not using an old deck. Well, sometimes a brand new deck, because it's just freshly cut, the edges are a little bit grainy. So all you need to do to just break it in a bit is just rub it against your jeans like that, on all the edges. Then it'll smoothen up the edges, breaking in a bit, and then you can just weave perfectly. Finally, the most important thing I can say to you is that it's all about practice. You see a lot of people use the word practice. You should just practice it, but what does that really mean? Well, practice is really repetition with that deliberate focus. Very focused thing about how it should be done, why it's done that way, and then really hardwiring every single movement, transition, every single thing with a sense of awareness into what you do. And when you repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat that, over time it becomes natural, automatic and consistent. It's just second nature. You see, this might be the most comprehensive pharaoh tutorial out there, but ultimately it's not magic. You don't just download it to your system and you go, hey, how come this doesn't work? No, you still have to put in the time, the effort to just get good at it and master it, and that only happens through repetition. So now that we have the big two questions out of the way, I'm going to go into finesse and style tips that will really give your pharaoh the extra edge. Like I said before, it's not necessary towards doing it well, but it really makes it look that much better. Now, quick tip number one is called compensating for the weave. So what do I mean by compensating for the weave? Well, remember I told you how to slice the cake when you're practicing the weave, you're just slicing it. But what tends to happen when you slice is this. Shing! Look, the packets can end up misaligned. Now, of course, as you get better at this move, you're not going to be slicing it all the way down. You're just going to be kind of pivoting the packets together just a bit, boom, and they end up weaved. But what still tends to happen is that there's a bit of misalignment. Maybe other people can't see it, but you can kind of see that it's a bit less than a border's width. You can kind of feel it and it makes you want to adjust it before you bridge the cards or close the pharaoh. So, what do I do to take care of that? Do I adjust it after that? No, I don't. I do something called compensating for the weave. And what that means is this. Instead of weaving the cards together, ending up misaligned, and then aligning it later, I begin a bit misaligned. So look, instead of starting exactly flush, I start back a bit. So when I weave them, and if I need to slide them, look, they end up perfectly aligned and perfectly flush, so I do not need to adjust them after. It's a little thing, but it makes a big difference. And that's it. That's compensating for the weave. Quick tip number two is called transitioning with the weave. Sounds complicated, but all it means is that you're keeping in mind what you're doing after the pharaoh. Are you going to close it? Are you going to bridge it? Are you going to cascade it? Are you going to do a giant fan? And all you're doing is that you're taking care of how you weave in a way that complements the flow of the next move. Now, when it comes to transitioning the weave, there's just two main factors to think about. And the first one is called the vertical direction of your weave. Now, what in the world is that? Well, the vertical direction of your weave simply means, am I weaving the cards from the bottom to the top, or am I weaving them from the top to the bottom? Now, this is less about actually transitioning to the next move, but it's more a preference about how you feel the cards flow better for you. For example, the basic mechanics of this tutorial, I taught you how to weave it from the bottom to the top, right? You do this V, break, bevel, and then you slide, focusing on the bottom, and the cards slowly weave to the top. But if you actually just mirror those instructions, you can do the opposite. You can weave the cards from the top all the way to the bottom. For example, Darren really prefers to weave the cards from the top to the bottom because that really complements the way he feels the cards should flow, and I prefer to do it from the bottom to the top. Of course, he's wrong. Now, the next point is about the horizontal direction of your weave. Now, what is that? All that means is that when you're slicing the cake, are you pushing the packet away from yourself, or are you pulling it towards yourself? Now, here's where it kind of comes into play, the whole transitioning to the next move. Let's say I'm doing a bridge after I weave the cards. So, I like to bring the packet towards myself and then I bridge. Why? Because it feels like a very contained thing. So I will bring it towards myself into a bridge. But let's say I'm doing a cascade where I'm actually going to be weaving the cards first and then I'm bringing this packet back. What I like to do is that it's more of a push style horizontal flow. So I push, but as I push, I'm also rotating this packet backwards to go straight into the cascade. See, one is this, where I pull. The other is a push, where this rotates back. Now, these are subtle differences that I feel really adds to the style of what you do. Of course, ultimately, there's no right or wrong way of doing this, you know? It's just my way of doing it. No, it's all completely up to you, okay? Think about your personal style. Why do you wish to present a move in a certain way? What are you doing after the weave? You know, is your intention to blend the weave into the move like the cascade? Or is it more like the bridge where the weave is one bit, then I bring it towards myself and then I bridge it? So think about what you're doing, why you're doing it, what you're trying to present, and what fits your style the best. And that's it. Experiment with it, and that's all about transitioning the weave. So I hope you enjoyed this super comprehensive tutorial on the perfect pharaoh. You know, I know this move is a bit knacky, tricky at first, but once you get it down, you're going to have one of the most versatile and impressive utilities and flourishes in your arsenal. It's super useful, not to mention you'll also be one of the few in the world who can do this well. So master it, and I promise you it will pay off. That's it. I'm Huron from The Verts, and I'll see you soon.